How we are linked to the work we do is deeply personal. I was born and raised in St. Paul, and I spent the majority of my life growing up in Minnesota, being one of the only students of color in my classes, the only Chicana for sure. In my teaching, in my scholarship, and through my creative work, I investigate how Chicanas Latinx subvert systemic inequalities by creating alternative narratives and spaces. Thinking about networks and relationships as constellations, myself and the other artists of color I collaborate with are trying to create work that fosters a sense of belonging and deep connection that extends beyond the production of the art itself. Work that ignites the imaginations of our community and inspires an alternative to the isolation many of us have felt. My goal is to tell stories and work with others to tell their stories so that another little girl who is growing up now doesn't have to feel like she's the only one in her class.
Everyone comes from somewhere, and where we come from shapes how we live our lives. For the past 20 years at the U, I've been studying the lives of Korean youth adopted internationally by white families. I'm interested in how adoptees navigate the paradox of growing up as a minority in their own family with minimal connection to their Korean heritage. Though I'm not adopted, how people make sense of their ethnicity and race resonate with my immigrant family upbringing. My parents immigrated from South Korea in the mid-1960s and owned family cleaners and tailors while I was growing up in Connecticut. I pay tribute to my parents' dreams and sacrifices by referring to my research team as the Family Lab. My 87-year-old dad now lives with my family. He's an artist, and in his backyard studio paints Korean landscapes from memory. My new work is trying to capture how homeland yearnings persist among immigrants, even 50 years later.
As a mortality demographer, I study heavy questions, literal matters of life and death. But the most difficult part of my work is figuring out precisely what question to pursue. When I'm in the grip of one of these intellectual puzzles, the way I make progress is by coming back to the data over and over again, relentlessly, until something finally clicks and I understand it by seeing it in a new way. The question I asked myself in my most recent study is how the catastrophic scale of death due to the COVID-19 pandemic compares to another U.S. catastrophe, racial inequality. I discovered that even if Black Americans had been immune to the coronavirus, their mortality this year would probably still be higher than white mortality during the pandemic. Once we see that racial inequality means a pandemic's worth of death to Black Americans every single year, it should change the way we think about fighting racism. When we consider ideas like reparations or defunding the police, our question should shift from what's politically palatable to just what will work.
What does it take to make a way through a situation that looks impossible? As a writer and educator, I want to help explore what it means to reckon with instability and discomfort, to work with the mess and read the big patterns that stay happening, despite the differences playing over the surface. I'm also concerned with interdisciplinary modes of composition, in music and text, the social and private. How is composition embodied and enacted in the work I'm making? Especially when so much of my work critiques the nexus of spectacle, violence, and power. In all of my compositions, poetry, libretti, essays, visual texts, I'm trying to hold contradiction without seeking to resolve it. How do we live in that indeterminate space?
The work I create reflects a diverse and interconnected visual history. My research begins with quilts made by enslaved and free African American women during the time of enslavement through the 20th century. My art is informed by the realities of those who stitched and sewed a resolute legacy that has gifted freedom, personhood, and rich visual language to our world. I love working with clay. Clay is egalitarian, but at the same time indifferent. It doesn't matter how skilled you are. You have to work with and respond to it. When I begin making tiles, I have no idea what the resulting quilt will look like. What I am really doing is exploring the substance of the clay itself, challenging the intrinsic properties of the material. I strive to sustain and honor the many gifts of my personal and collective history, embedded in the visual chronicles of my communal ancestry.
There's so much more socially constructed meaning in the way we speak than people realize. Do you expect someone to sound different depending on whether you're listening to a man or a woman? Whether you've decided that the person is gay or straight?
We all have preconceptions about how people's voices will match their faces. And previous studies suggest people are better at recognizing faces within their own ethnic group. We're asking the question of how much that same principle extends into speech perception.
Since all of the existing research in the field of speech-language hearing sciences is based solely on white varieties, we realized that to study this question, we had to create a new database pulling from a more diverse population sample.
Creating this resource for anyone to use is an important contribution to increasing representation in research, and a step towards addressing historical inequity in the discipline of speech-language hearing sciences as a whole. If we want our science to reflect reality, then we need our research data to reflect it as well.